Hello everybody and welcome in to round number 6 of the ATRL Racing League's WEC Classic as we all get ready to head around the wonderful COTA race circuit. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic evening of racing, there's no doubt once more. It has been great racing all season long and it has been a mix-up in the championship as we've gone through as well, but we see one man on top in the LMP class heading into the final few races in this season. Of course, this is the third and final race in our triple header. We take a couple of weeks off after tonight before we head out once again in 3 weeks' time. And looking at that, we'll have a quick peek of the calendar because the next time that we head out after today will be around the wonderful Fuji Speedway round number 7 on the 9th of May. It ends off in Daytona International Speedway round number 8 on the 16th of May. So make sure that you are joining us for that one. It is going to be a fantastic end to the season. Who is going to find their way to the top of each of their respective championships, and of course who is going to be able to find their way to the front of each of their classes here today. It has been a decent season for Shan Corbs in your LMP1 field. He'll be looking to try and take victory yet again here today. Of course, we cannot forget all the way back in Nürburgring how things can change at the very last moment. Drivers are going to be doing their absolute hardest to try and make sure that they can get through the entire 90 minutes drama-free, maximise the points that are on offer for them, and try to keep their championship fights alive. Talking about championship fights, your LMP2 class is going to have an interesting championship fight today because we do see only one of our main championship contenders up there at the front. But we do see a couple of newcomers. We do see Ewan Stitchbury back behind the wheel as well in the LMP2 field. And in your GTE field, once again out there, we see Thomas Clausen, Andy Bootland, and Mauricio Marcos Ramos, the 3 drivers that have been here with us the last few weeks, are off and on for the drivers. Of course, there's only one driver of the 3 that has been here for all of the season, and that is Andy Bootland. And with that being said, it means that his championship standings is looking pretty lovely right about now. And with that being said as well, let's have a look at the GTE Championship standings. Oh, I would love to have a look at the GTE Championship standings, but for some reason it is only showing the drivers that are here, and that is an issue that I do not know what's wrong with that. Okay then, let's talk you through the championship order. I don't know why that's doing that. I've never had that before. Okay then, well then, unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to try and fix that whilst we're going on through the broadcast here, but championship standings, actually now that I look at it, I can't even give you the official championship standings into this one just yet because there are no official championship standings out there. I'm going to do my best for you guys to try and get the championship standings over to you, but I've got to do that while I was talking to you about the event coming up. So we do have a fantastic event coming up in COTA again. Drivers are going through their qualifying session now in the background. So they are getting their lap times on the board and are doing, I think I can see the issue straight away. I think I might have just been able to sort out this issue straight away here. Let's give this another go. Nope, okay. I thought it was a simple fix. It was not a simple fix, unfortunately. Oh, I see the issue. I actually do see the issue now. Oh, okay. This is not going to be a simple fix. Unfortunately, I can see the exact issue that has come around, and it is to do with the driver classes. Unfortunately, when I was sorting out my standings in the background, my classes came undone. So I'm going to try and fix this. We are going to head around then for qualifying. Drivers are out there at the moment trying to get their lap times in. However, they are going to be having to deal with the limited lap times. That doesn't really affect you too much in your GTE field, because GTE field and your LMP2 field, they can just get around there, put in their lap times. They might need to do a cool down lap on their tyres. However, the LMP1 field, the qualifying session really does limit them, because they are limited to trying to get the lap times in whilst having to do push laps and recovery laps, energy recovery laps, of course, in those LMP1 cars, because they do have to try and figure them out a little bit out there in trying to figure out when they are pushing hard. They've got to then get all the energy back again before they can push their car once again. So for the LMP1 cars, it's not a case of, hey, I've got 5 laps, I'm going to push 5 laps. It's a, hey, I've got 5 laps, I've got to push, I've got to recover, I've got to push, I've got to recover. So that's what our drivers are doing out there right now, and that is what they are going to be thinking about as they head into their qualifying session. Of course, they then set themselves up for what will be a 90-minute race, and it has been a great set of races over the course of this season, with changes happening at the beginning, changes happening towards the end as well. So drivers trying to do their absolute hardest to keep it together as the event goes on, and I think I have figured this one out. Okay, let's give this a little bit of another test here and see if potentially this has worked. It might not have worked. I don't think it's worked. Right. Okay, we will try this again in just 1 moment's time. It is all about trying to get this stuff done. I had it all set up before the start of the broadcast. Unfortunately, we don't have any official results in the championship stood at the moment, which means all of the championship results that I have right now are all the unofficial championship results that I've had to put together, and in doing so I've accidentally deleted a very important section of code, which has now impacted me quite a lot with what I was doing. And I cannot figure out this last one. That's why. Let's just get rid of that one. And, okay, let's see if we've got this fixed now, because sometimes this does occur. And like I said, we don't have the official championship standings, so I cannot just use the official championship standings this week. We're going to have to try and get this to work. Can we get this to work? Yes, we certainly can. A little bit of fiddling in the background. I apologise for that, but we have got it to work. So we can have a look at our championship standings, and it is Andy Bootland. As I mentioned earlier, Bootland is the driver that has been here since the, over the course of the last few weeks. He's constantly turned up, constantly put points on the board, and it means he has right now a 71-point advantage over Mauricio Marquez Ramos. Marquez Ramos is here today as well. He's third. The other driver here today is Thomas Clausen. That third in qualifying, I mean. Second in this session. Thomas Clausen is the other driver here today as well. He's currently 5th in the championship with the points today. He should be able to get himself past Isaac Fairweather into 4th position in the championship at a very minimum. He could find himself past Philip Beresville as well into 3rd position at the end of this one. The rest of your top 10 on showing there. Let's jump across your LMP2 field, because this is the interesting one. Charlie Devlin, Luca Gray setting out of the last one. Unofficial standings. It is 200 points apiece. These are unofficial race standings, of course, out of the 5th round of asking. Therefore, going at the end of this one, once again, there will be provisional standings at the end of today. Luca Gray, however, unable to race today due to real-world commitments. What that means is that Charlie Devlin is going to have a massive opportunity to open that door right now, but Ryan Stringer is going to do his absolute best, I'm sure, to help out in 3rd position to move his way in towards the front of this one, if possible, as well. With Charlie Devlin at the front of this right now is going to be very, very helpful for him. So we'll see what happens with the Scorpio Esports drivers if Ryan Stringer can move his way into 2nd position and make it a Scorpio Esports 1-2. We'll have to wait and find out. At the moment, Lucas Chatterton has moved his way up into 4th in the championship. Can he find his way any further up? I mean, he's only 30 points behind Ryan Stringer. If Stringer has a bad race today, he certainly could find his way past. So let's find out what happens in your LMP2 field as the evening progresses. And as I said earlier, Jean Corbs is having a pretty decent season. And with that being said, he is sitting with a few points over Julian Metzner right now, although those points don't fully make sense to me. As I believe, are they mostly multiples of 5s? Oh, not when they get lower, are they? Okay, right then. That is our provisional standings in your LMP1 field at the moment, with Jean Corbs with 195 points, Julian Metzner 187 ahead of Justin Stunek, and of course those drivers all looking to try and find more time. No Julian Metzner here today, though. So Jean Corbs is up the front, will look to improve his gap. Justin Stunek will look to find his way through. I mean, Tony Dibden's here as well, will be looking to try and find his way up that order. Quinton Verdonk back out again today, as he's fallen down the order after not being able to take part in every race this season. Natsuga Sovne sitting in 6th position in the championship. She's pretty quick in this qualifying session that is coming to a close in the background. Only a point clear of Dominic Gallo out of the last one. Gallo out there as well, but no lap times on the board for Justin Stanek, Jean Corbs or Charlie Devlin. Devlin has been out there, but has been unable to put in a valid lap time. Stanek and Corbs have not, it looked like they have not even left the pit lane in this qualifying session. We shall have to find out how it all goes about in this one, as drivers looking over the event and seeing what is going to occur at the end of this qualifying session. With that being said, then let's have a little bit of a look at our order in this qualifying session right now, as Charlie Devlin moves into 2nd position as we go on to our live pictures here. And he just finished his last lap time. But yeah, strange. No Justin Sneck or Jean Corbs putting in lap times here. It is fastest on the board for Quinton Verdonk, who will be looking to take pole position over Natsuga Sovne. I mean, Sovne is looking pretty quick in this session as well. Not too far off of Verdonk. And she was looking like she could possibly have taken that podium last time out, of course, when we were around... where were we last week? Mexico, of course. Looked like she could have taken that podium around Mexico. In the end, it wasn't quite to be. There was a lot of fighting going on. We shall have to wait to see if today could possibly be her day. She'll have 6 drivers out there in that LMP1 class, and that means half of them will get that podium. Will Sovne be one of them? 4 LMP2 drivers, 3 GTE drivers. They are all going to be preparing themselves in the next 2 minutes to get down onto the grid and get this race underway. Is Lucas Chatterton still a championship contender? Tell you what, let's have a little bit of a look at that LMP2 field and work out mathematically, as we go into the 6th of 8 rounds of asking. There are 165 points still on the board, 50 points per race win, 5 points per fastest lap, which means that mathematically, Lucas Chatterton, yes, you are still in this championship fight. However, you can be knocked out of that championship fight today. So he's got a little bit of work to do, is Lucas Chatterton, sitting in 4th position in the championship. If you're watching over on the YouTube, make sure that you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, as we prepare to go racing for the 6th time this season. Welcome in to the Aztec Racing League's WEC Classic for season number 1 here, presented by Joseph Wright Broadcasting. If you're watching over on the Aztec YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. If you're watching on the Joseph Wright Broadcasting channels, make sure you hit the follow button and subscribe buttons over there as well to get notified when we go live. We prepare for the 6th round of action here. 90 minutes of racing action ahead of us, and Quinton Verdonk is going to be starting the race on pole position. A surprise to see that Justin Stanek and Jean Corbs, neither driver, even made it out of pit lane in the 20 minutes of qualifying. To see where he's going to put themselves on the board. So they are going to be starting at the back of their class in the upcoming order for the grid. So they have a little bit of work to do, but fortunately, it does mean that. With only a few drivers out there on the circuit, they haven't got a huge amount of work to do to pull themselves all the way from the very back. Of course, they'll be starting themselves near towards the rest of the field. And with that being said, let's have a look at the grid here around the COTA circuit for is going to be 90 minutes of racing action. That's about 51 laps here around the circuit located in Austin, Texas. Quinton Verdonk will be starting the LMP1 field on pole position, 3/10 clear in qualifying, ahead of Napsuva Sovne, starting on the front row for Prismatic Motorsports. Tony Dibden will be starting in third position, will be looking to finally get back onto that podium position once more, maybe gets an elusive race victory. Dominic Gallo starting from fourth position, and then without lap times on the board, Justin Stanek and Jan Korbs will be starting from the rear end of your LMP2 field. Your LMP1 field. In your LMP2 field, Ewan Stitchbury will be starting from pole position ahead of Charlie Devlin. Ryan Stringer will be starting in third position, and Lucas Chatterton from fourth. Stitchbury looking to get himself into that championship fight, it looks like, between Devlin and Stringer and Luca Gray. Of course, no Gray today. Then we have our GTE field, and it's going to be Andy Bootland starting that one from pole position. Will be looking to go for 3 in a row in the GTE field and to continue extending what is now looking like a very dominant lead in the championship. I mean, technically, if Clausen or Marcos Ramos were to be pointless today, if they finished before, they crashed out or retired from the race before they reached 75% race distance and took 0 points on the board, I believe that Bootland could mathematically win the championship today, but he would need both of those drivers to DNF from this one. Clausen will be starting on second position, and Mauricio Marquez Ramos will be starting from third. But of course, what we did see from Marcos Ramos and from Clausen, no matter how far they fell back, they still took the checkered flag at the end, because for those drivers, any point really is important in the championship. And that's exactly what we saw, what we've been seeing over the last few weeks, of course, with the series going on, because a lot of drivers not getting out there on the track. It is benefiting the drivers who are turning up, who are consistently putting in the races. Of course, a drop week will be applied for our drivers, but for most of them now, their drop week is going to be a race that they just haven't attended. Right then, we get ready to go green flag racing. We watch the LMP1s come up towards a final turn. Quinton Verdonk is going to be leading on the left-hand side of the circuit ahead of Sovne. Are they going to go early? Yes, they have gone straight out of the final corner and up towards turn number 1. Boost already for Verdonk there as you deploy that energy system to get himself further up ahead. Justin Stanek here looks to the inside of Jean Korbs. That was Gallo going a little bit to the left-hand side there, backing Stanek out of it. Korbs is going to stick to the right-hand side. Back in your LMP2 field, it is side-by-side between you and Stitchbury and Charlie Devlin. Stitchbury on the outside. Devlin gets it on the inside line, though, and moves straight into the lead of the LMP2 field. But here comes Ewan Stitchbury to try and go back at it. They're side by side as we come up towards the S's here, but it is going to be backing out from Stitchbury, not wanting to go in for a fight so early into this race. Of course, 90 minutes on the clock, fighting it out on the opening lap of the race in such a difficult section to go side by side. Not going to be worth it. So in your LMP2 field, they've sorted themselves out. Stanek gets his way past Dominic Gallo as Gallo falls down to 5th position, but Jean Korbs, championship leader, remains at the very back of the order. Dibden deploying his energy along the back straight there, gets past Napsuga Sovne, moves in to 2nd position in your LMP1 field. Your LMP2 field have sorted themselves out, and at the start, Thomas Clausen has dispatched Andy Bootland and has moved through into the race lead. We'll have to have a peek at how that one occurred when we get a moment to do so. But right now, it is going to be Stitch Free to the inside of Charlie Devlin. It's going to switch back over to Devlin's inside line, but Stitchbury has got some good speed, but he loses the rear end. And Stitchbury is going to go around, and Ryan Stringer moves himself into second position. Lucas Chatterton up to third, and Stitchbury here just gets himself facing the right way before the GTEs come through. But for Charlie Devlin, it's a moment to breathe for Ryan Stringer. He gets into second alongside his teammates. And then for Ewan Stitchbury, he falls down to fourth. That does mean Lucas Chatterton moves into third position and has kept it really close to Ryan Stringer on the opening lap of Asking here. Didn't get the best of laps in qualifying. We'll be trying to keep a little bit of pace here around what is a challenging circuit, a circuit that has been built to replicate the famous corners of other circuits out there. We'll talk more about that later. But Napsuga Sovne now gets onto the back straight. This is where Dibden made his way past Sovne last lap. Can Sovne make her way past Dibden this lap? She closes in, but it won't be enough to try and make the move in the early stages of this race as we go around on the second lap of Asking. But here we go. She switches across to the inside line. This is exactly what we saw between Devlin and Stitchbury. Will Sovne be able to keep the car facing the right way? She does. She has to stay behind once more in third position. Dibden holds on to second position for the time being and gets around the circuit ahead of Sovne and in for what would be a season best result if he is able to get into second position and, well, stay in second position all the way for the next hour and 26 minutes. Verdonk, after getting pole position, has pulled away from this fight for second. Open that gap up to 2 seconds right now, and Jean Corbs is still at the rear end of the train of drivers coming through. I'm not too sure what's going on with Corbs today, because this is not the Jean Corbs we know from the season, of course. He has been extremely quick, but he is just dropping further and further back alongside Dominic Gallo here, which is interesting to see, because it's not something that we've seen so far this season, is a slow-running Jean Corbs. You'll be hoping to do something a little bit better than that as the evening continues, as we look, in fact, at Corbs' race results. His worst result is a third place. He's finished third, second, first, third, first. I mean, it's always been a podium for Jean Corbs. Will it be a podium again today or not? Well, he's got his way past Dominic Gallo along the back straight. Can he keep himself ahead of the number 39 machine? He does. Jean Corbs makes his way up just the one position as it stands. Now then, we know that there was a change at the start of this one for the lead in your GTE field. So I'm going to see where, if I can, that overtake occurred. Because I cannot actually see the overtake from Thomas Clausen getting past Andy Bootland after the green flag. So it's potentially happened before the green flag here. Right, this is the GTE start. Let's have a look at how this one occurred. So this was Andy Bootland. He started in first position, and I think it might have just been the launch there, because, yeah, the green flag was out, and look at that launch there from Thomas Clausen. Clausen just got a great start off of the green flag. They didn't have to wait, obviously, until the timing line. They had to wait until the green flags waved, and that happened whilst they were coming up towards the final turn. And what that means is that Andy Bootland has dropped down into second position. Thomas Clausen leads the way. Ewan Stitchbury looking to now move back up the order. Stitchbury in fourth position, looking to dispatch Lucas Chatterton and hunt back towards Stringer and Devlin at the front of this field. Chatterton moves to the right-hand side as we come up towards turn number one. He is going to go defensive here on Ewan Stitchbury. Bumps over the curbing, pushes it out wide, and Stitchbury here is going to be stuck behind for the time being. We ride on board. He swings it to the right-hand side now. A little bit stuck behind. Is he going to be? That is going to be Chatterton off the circuit. Chatterton tried to keep it ahead of Ewan Stitchbury, but couldn't quite make his defence work there, getting the curbing a little bit too much, throwing himself off the circuit. And now we come up towards the back end of the track, and it is going to be once again Napsuga Sovne up towards the timing line here. Behind Tony Dibden is about 0.8 of a second here, keeping ahead of Justin Stanek. She holds on to a podium position, but can Napsuga Sovne find her way any higher? Of course, she started on the front row of the grid in second position ahead of Tony Dibden. That position changed on the opening lap of asking, and it has remained this way since then for Justin Stanek as we ride on board with Stanek here, looking to see if he can find his way onto a podium position and help out his championship chances, especially with Jean Corbs down the order at the moment and almost 6 seconds behind this leading chain of drivers. That is a big gap behind, isn't it? Like for Jean Corbs to be sat 5.6 seconds, 5.8 seconds, it is, measuring about 6 seconds around this circuit, from the driver that has taken fastest lap, taken race victories throughout the season, to see him so slow around here at the moment is strange. Hopefully we'll see Jean Corbs pick up a bit of pace. We ride on board with Justin Stanek. Ahead is Napsuga Sovne, seeing if she can just keep herself together here as we come through at the end of the lap. It's a little bit of a side from Stanek there as we come up into the final sector of the lap. Now, if Stanek deploys his battery and his extra power strategically here, he could find his way to the inside up towards turn number 1. Sovne will be looking at using that little bit of extra power as defense here. Drivers now coming up towards our GTE field. We've already reached there as there has been a change in your GTE lead. It is going to be Andy Bootland past so that's going to be Andy Bootland past Thomas Clausen, and Clausen now 5 seconds back. Something has happened at turn number 1 to Thomas Clausen here. What has happened into turn number 1? It's deep from Clausen. A lock-up spins it. Bootland just keeps it tight enough to avoid any contact there. Thomas Clausen gets the car spun back around, down now and behind Andy Bootland, and that will be a shame for Clausen, who had such a good launch, was opening that gap up towards the front. Unfortunately now it has closed down. Justin Stanek remains ahead of Jean Corbs and by about 5.6 seconds still, and now getting right onto the end of Napsuga Sovne. Will be looking to see if he can make his way up into that podium position in the early stages of this race. With 10 minutes in, they've still got 80 minutes to go as we come through sector number 2 and up towards the final sector here. This is obviously where we saw Ewan Stitchbury spin on the opening lap of asking. He's about 2 seconds behind Ryan Strunger and still trying to pull his way in to the LMP2 battle towards the front. But that being said, Ryan Strunger himself is 3 seconds off of Charlie Devlin right now, and as it looks like Mauricio Marquez Ramos has had an issue out there on the circuit in your GTE field, and it is a loss of the rear end up at turn number 1 as well. And that turn catching your drivers out a fair bit. No, that wasn't actually turn number 1. That was all the way to the back straight, I should say. Mauricio Ramos there moving out of the way and letting teammate Dominic Gallo make his way through. And Gallo gets through the final corner. Stanek now all over the rear of Sovne, looking to try and make his way onto the podium position in this LMP1 field. Sovne, however, keeps it ahead at the moment as they come on towards the back straight. They have one more heavy braking zone, and is Stanek going to be able to recharge his battery just a little bit more here and use it to get past Sovnay? Slightly different lines on entering that corner there. It did look a little bit smoother for Sovnay ahead, but Stanek's gap is closing. It's closing. That boost is being used by Justin Stanek. Gets alongside here, but now has to back out of the boost a little bit. Sovnay trying to keep it on the wider line there in towards the braking zone. She comes back into attack on the wider line, trying to get Stanek to run the tighter line through the corners and keep him running a little bit off kilter here. It could set Sovnay up for a chance through the exit, but no. Justin Stanek holds it ahead at the moment. Sovnay falls down to 4th position, but you saw with her qualifying result, she started in 2nd. She's got some good pace out there, but of course, remember, Stanek did not put a lap time in. Neither did Jeanne Corbs. Stanek has the pace, Corbs does not, because Corbs is continuing to drop back from this lead fight, and that is really strange from our championship leader to be running around and just losing so much time here. A little bit of a slide there from Stanek in towards turn number 1. Sovnay is going to look at that and think, where can I potentially take my advantage? Ewan Stitchbury is thinking the same thing here in the number 3 machine, number 22 machine in 3rd position in class. How can I make my way past Ryan Stringer for 2nd position in this race as we head on to the back straight? We ride on board with Ewan Stitchbury up towards the heavy braking zone, and that is going to be, look how heavy they have to slam on their brakes, and Stitchbury just doing it a moment later there closes that gap significantly up towards the rear end there. As we now come in towards the end of the lap, Stitchbury's going to look to the inside of Ryan Stringer, looks to try and make that move there side by side. Stitchbury was out in the lead of this one on the opening lap of Asking, spun around in the fight with Charlie Devlin, still has a bit of work to catch back up to Devlin, but before he can focus on that, he needs to dispatch Ryan Stringer here for 2nd position. We come to the inside of the final turn. It is going to be to the inside line, and through goes Ewan Stitchbury into 2nd position and up into that fight. But there's going to be a little bit of a nudge there as Stringer tries to come back in it. There's a little bit of contact as the two come together, but Stitchbury will just be able to keep his car ahead of Ryan Stringer on the exit there, and the Aura Motorsports machine is going to stay ahead of the Scorpio Esports machine, running in just behind right now, and he's had to relinquish the position to the charging Ewan Stitchbury, who is going to be on the hunt now, 4.5 seconds up to Charlie Devlin to try and take back the lead of the race that he fell out of at the very start of this one. This is Napsuga Sovnay going to the inside of Lucas Chatterton, the LMP2 driver, as this fight for 3rd position in class just slowly opens up once more as Quentin Verdonk continues to extend his lead ever so slightly towards the very front. Now remember, back to race number 1 though, Quentin Verdonk had a very easy race at that one until the contact with Riley Pogue, of course. We have to remember that at Silverstone. But Verdonk did still go on to win that one. However, they won't be too happy if something was like that was to happen again. We jump back then to Ryan Stringer, still chasing down Ewan Stitchbury to see if he can recover any position in this one. That is Tony Dibden just behind, and then just behind that you can still see that fight going on for 3rd position in your LMP1 field. An hour and 14 minutes remain on the clock here as we come through to the end of the lap, and this will be the end of 9th lap of Asking on to the 10th of 52 potential laps here. Lights flashing from Stanek, just letting the race leader Charlie Devlin know, hey, we're here, we want to make his way through. In fact, that is not Charlie Devlin, that is Ryan Stringer, 3rd position in class. I thought it was Devlin because there was no car in front of him. However, that's because Ewan Stitchbury has already gained a 2-second advantage over Ryan Stringer in this part of the race. Now, Sovne trying to utilise the LMP2s to her advantage. She has closed back up towards Justin Stanek here and is once again all over the rear end of the number 5 machine. However, Stanek there just using a little bit of extra battery power, pulling away, and once again you can see when the car uses the battery compared to when they don't, because that extra boost, you can see it. And Sovne here using it along the back straight to keep herself up with Justin Stanek. And now we'll get on towards the braking cone, all over the rear end of the number 5 machine. Gets very, very close to the rear end, in fact, and she is going to go for the move to the inside. Natsuga Sovne looking to move back into 3rd position, and she gets it as she moves to the inside of Charlie Devlin. A knock there with the leader in your LMP2 field. That's a little bit of damage now on Charlie Devlin. Devlin at Mexico had to deal with damage through most of that race. And now Devlin has picked up damage after a little bit of contact there with Sovne as she made her way through for 3rd position in class. This is the contact that happened between the two of them. Just a little bit of a nudge, and now there has been a change of position once more as well as we went back onto the main straight here. Just again, the use of the battery power, the use of deploying that energy at the right time. Justin Stanek zoomed his way past Natsuga Sovne. He finds himself back in 3rd. Sovne finds herself back down to 4th position, as it was a bit of a shame for Devlin to pick up some more damage. However, he is not looking like he's picked up significant damage. That gap, though, to Stitchbury has closed by a second since Stitchbury made his way past Ryan Stringer. And on the last lap of asking, that entire second was where it was found. Of course, Devlin having to run off the circuit after the contact with the LMP1, which means that we'll see a more representative lap time this time around to see how quickly or slowly Stitchbury is catching up towards Devlin in this race. Mauricio Marquez Ramos continues to have a few issues in his GTE machine, however, still running out there at the moment in 3rd position. And again, as long as he finishes within 75%, I believe it's 75%, of your class leader, and complete 75% laps of the class leader, you will take points in this one, which will mean a lot in your GTE championship, because in your GTE championship, this is without bonus points as it stands. You can see Mauricio Marquez Ramos with the 40 points will be keeping himself well clear of Thomas Clausen, and Clausen will be getting past Beresville and Fairweather, as they've not attended a number of races now, and it is just Bootland, Marquez Ramos and Clausen that we'll be seeing going towards the end of this one. As it stands, Andy Bootland will not take the championship in this one, but he will have a massive advantage in order to take the championship into the 7th round of Ask, and he could take it next time out when we go racing again in 3 weeks' time. However, if all 3 GTE drivers do finish, they are not going to be able to find their way to the end. Talking about finishing, Ewan Stitchbury was on his hunt here for the race lead once more. Stitchbury is out through turn 1, losing the rear end for the 2nd time and deciding enough was enough, which that does mean is Stitchbury will not getting points on the board. It moves Lucas Chatterton into 3rd position once more, and Ryan Stringer into 2nd. And of course, in your LMP2 field, this is going to help out Stringer in trying to catch up and gets past Luca Gray in the championship as well. But for the time being, the gap between them will remain identical. That is because Luca Gray is picking up the 45 points from a drop week. That is where those points are coming from. For Lucas Chatterton, he will find himself in 4th, and for Ewan Stitchwell, you can see at the moment it would be 37 points, but being down and out of the race, that will be down to 0 points gained in this race, and therefore he will find himself dropping down the championship order once more. In your LMP1 field, as it stands, almost half an hour through this race, it is Jan Corbs who is going to continue to lead his way at the front. Those 40 points are not coming from today's race because Corbs is sitting down in 5th position. It is not a great result for Corbs today. This is going to become Corbs' drop week, and those 40 points are going to come from Jan Corbs' previous attempt out there, as it looks like Tony Dibden has had some issues because this gap between himself, Stanek and Sovnay has significantly decreased here, and it is now a 3-car fight for 2nd position in class here as Verdonk leads the way. Tony Dibden in 2nd ahead of Justin Stanek. Napsuga Sovnay runs around in 4th position as we come through the middle end of the circuit here, but for the time being they do sit in single file. Is Dibden going to be able to keep himself ahead? But he'll be looking in his rearview mirror and seeing the chasing LMP1 cars, and of course that is going to be rather daunting when you've got 67 minutes still left on the board. We come up towards the final turn. When will we see pit stops in this one? Of course, last week we only saw 1 stop from our LMP1 drivers. They were able to push to the 45-minute mark, or even over that 45-minute mark. If they can do the same again today, we will be going for a 1-stopped race. We've seen 2 stops every other week. However, I don't know whether we will see the 1 stop again today. There is potential for it, of course, as the next sees potential for 2nd position. Sovnay can see potential for making her way up and past if the number 5 and the number 99 machine start to fight it out there. Now then, we come through the bottom end of the circuit, and of course if you want to see a POV of this broadcast, TDI 99 will be your place to go in your LMP1 field. He's running around for a season best result right now. Best before was 3rd position. Can he take 2nd position? He looks behind to Stanek, who now uses that extra electrical power to find his way past up into 2nd position. Sovnay stays behind, but it is going to be side by side for 2nd position. Dibden on the outside. Stanek makes his way through. Dibden now has to go defensive because he's going to have Sovnay to his inside. Sovnay looking to move through for 3rd, and Sovnay moves up into 3rd position. Verdonk leads the way by 7 seconds, but Justin Stanek now the driver who will be looking to try and chase him down, with Stanek starting at the back of your LMP1 field alongside Jan Corbs after not putting in a qualifying lap. Corbs has fallen 12 seconds back from this fight. Where has Corbs' pace gone? This is going to be the season worst result after finishing on the podium all season long for Jan Corbs. It looks like COTA is going to be the circuit that breaks his streak, that stops him from taking those points. He'll be looking at taking 5th position and trying to get to the end of this one anyway, just in case something happens in the final 2 rounds of asking, as we will be taking a 2-week break, of course. We'll be back in 3 weeks' time for the 7th and penultimate round of this season of competition. After today, there are just 2 more opportunities for drivers to find their way through. There will be 110 points still left on offer for our drivers, and therefore we'll be looking at our unofficial championship standings here on the broadcast, and we will be looking at who mathematically is still in each of the championship fights going into the final 2 rounds in 3 weeks' time. Right. This is continuing to be the fight here in your LMP1 field, with Stanek ahead of Sovnay, but Sovnay is closer than she has ever been here in this fight for 2nd and 3rd position, as Sovnay gets towards the rear end of Stanek. And of course, that dirty air is going to be playing an effect that's causing understeer. Fortunately for these LMP1 drivers, they don't have to worry about too much traffic out there. They've only got 7 non-class cars to contend with. 4 LMP2s, 3 GTEs, and even more fortunately for them, one of them is down and out. Ewan Stitchbury out early doors in this race. What that does mean is that they're not going to have to worry too much about those slower cars. However, where they catch the remaining cars is going to be important for the most part right now. We have seen them catch them on the straights and into the heavy braking zones that they've been able to go towards the inside. If you were to catch a GTE car through these S's, for example, you're going to have to give up a lot of time to navigate them carefully or even wait behind them. So the faster car in these LMP1 classes are going to have to make sure that they're picking the right time, because, of course, if they choose the wrong time to go for an overtake, they could lead what would be a very difficult race for the GTE driver, for example, if they go and get some little bit of contact. And we've seen multi-class collisions come together before, very notably last week at Mexico. We saw Tony Dibden get spun around after contact in your LMP with one of your LMP2 drivers. So Dibden will be thanking his lucky stars he's not got too much traffic to contend with tonight, and he'll be hoping that he continues facing the right way. At the moment, he's at the rear end of this train of LMP1 drivers out there. Now, Thomas Clausen has been doing a good job to pull himself back up towards Andy Bootland. Remember, we watched Clausen go around on the 5th lap of asking. That was almost 10 laps ago at turn number 1. Locked up the tyres, lost the rear end, and went from lead down to second position, but he has closed that gap now. It is down to 1.2 seconds. Stringer himself has closed the gap to Devlin, but don't forget, Devlin is contending with damage once again, just like he did back at Mexico, but this time it was contact with Sauvigny that caused the damage on that machine. Is Thomas Clausen going to have an opportunity to get past Andy Bootland here? Because Clausen's going to, well, I mean, even if Clausen was to win the rest of the races and get fastest laps, if Bootland finishes second in every race, it still won't be enough for Clausen. Bootland has just got those points in hand for his championship right now. But it's going to be interesting to see if Clausen's able to catch up, able to do anything here with it. As it looks like either we don't have a lovely custom camera angle, or it's just because I haven't loaded it onto the car. We'll ride on board, though, with Thomas Clausen here as we come through the middle part of the circuit here. Half an hour down, 1 hour to go. We have said goodbye to just one driver out there, and that is, of course, Ewan Stitchbury in your LMP2 field. The rest of your drivers are still out there and running. We've had a couple of spins, a few moments with cars coming, colliding. Well, I say colliding, scraping as they made overtakes and their way past. But for the most part right now, it has been relatively clean. We ride on board with Tony Dibden, who's sitting around in 4th position, chasing down Napsuga Sauvigny, and Justin Stanek sitting 3rd and 2nd. Now, these drivers are having to work with their hybrid system that these cars contain, and for a lot of them at the beginning of the season, it was getting to grips of using it for the first time. This LMP1 class no longer used, of course, in iRacing sessions. So therefore, getting out there, getting to grips with the hybrid system was one that a few of our drivers had to do. And it's all about trying to recharge that battery. Look at Sauvigny there, going around the outside of Lucas Chatterton, just about avoided contact. But does avoid contact in all of that one. But yeah, the way that they have to brake, that instead of just going late and stamping onto the brakes in these LMP1 machines, the best way to recharge one of these machines is by braking earlier and softer. And that's actually the way to do it, is because if you brake longer, the longer you're braking for, the more energy you'll recover. It's not the harder you brake, the more energy you'll recover. The longer you brake, the more energy you will recover. So that's what we are seeing between our drivers here. As we talk about seeing between our drivers, we ride on board with Ryan Stringer. He's got to the rear end of Charlie Devlin at the front end of your LMP2 field. Now, Devlin is leading the championship. Stringer is down in 3rd position right now in the championship. Will be on the hunt to get past Luca Gray. Gray taking a drop week this week, will be recovering 45 points. That's just telling you, isn't it, just how strong Gray's season has been, that his recovery from the one event that he's not here is 45 points. Mental stuff. Right, coming through turn number 1 here for Ryan Stringer up towards the S's section, and this gap of 0.6 of a second, it's interesting. You can see that Devlin is struggling there. Like Mexico, he's got that front end damage and he is having to contend with that, and it just means Stringer's a bit faster out there. Through goes Quinton Verdonk to the inside, and looks to the inside of Devlin there. That's got to be frustrating when you're the faster class, but it's also got to be frustrating when you are the slower class. You don't expect to see a driver make those dives, and you can see there from what Devlin's doing, that's the 2nd time he's been hit this race now by an LMP1 car. He won't be impressed with that one, but he did push it out wide, so you could argue he could have kept it a little bit further to the left there. It was clear that Verdonk was going to go to the right-hand side on the exit of that corner. But is this going to be an overtake from Ryan Stringer? Is it going to be Devlin backing out? No. It is going to remain Devlin ahead of Stringer for the moment, but this could be an opportunity for Ryan Stringer to get past his teammates. Of course, for Devlin, it'll be about trying to maximise his points over Luca Gray. For Ryan Stringer, it'll be trying to close his gap up to the championship contender and see if maybe perhaps the 2 Scorpio Esports drivers will find themselves at the front of this one. That was making his way through Justin Stanek. And here comes Sovnay and Dibden down behind as well. Sovnay is going to be able to make that move before the final turn. And here comes Tony Dibden. This is going to be way too early for a 1-stop. It is going to be a 2-stop race here for Dibden as he comes down pit lane in towards the pit stop. Tony Dibden making the first of the stops in this race. He comes to a stop in his box. Is it going to be tyres? No, it doesn't look like it will. He stays down low on the surface, which means for Tony Dibden, he will be filling up with fuel here to go for his 2nd stint of asking. Tony Dibden will move out of the pit box and come out now. Back onto the racing surface, has fallen behind Jean Corbs, but does stay ahead of Dominic Gallo. Pit stop for Tony Dibden. It is the first pit stop of the race. Whether it was scheduled or unscheduled, I'm not too sure, but I think with an early stop like that, Tony Dibden will be thinking here it is just an opportunity for to get out of these. He's kept on following Sovnay, so I think he was trying to hold on to it as here comes Stringer once again to the inside of Devlin. Devlin locks up, Stringer's to the inside. There's just enough room between the 2 teammates to make their way through here as they fight it out for the lead. Chatterton 21 seconds back. They can have a bit of fun for the next 55 minutes as Thomas Clausen, after catching up towards Andy Bootland and potentially finding his way back into the lead of the race, has found himself around. What has happened here to Thomas Clausen? It's a wobble on the rear end, and it's a hit with the wall for Thomas Clausen. The front end getting some big damage there as he will flick it around, get back going again, but Clausen now going to be dealing with damage on the front end of that machine. Will he be coming down pit lane early, or will he just be waiting for the next 10 minutes and come down at about the halfway stage to make this a 1-stop? The GTEs have always been a 1-stop, and I believe even at Le Mans they were a 1-stop class, whereas the LMP1s, LMP2s, they've been 2 stops for most of this season. although the LMP2s do get away with a one-stop more often than the LMP1s. Of course, Mexico being the only time this season that the LMP1s have managed to do a race with a one-stop. Devlin caught that curbing, that sausage curb, very, very heavily there. We ride on board with Ryan Stringer looking up at Charlie Devlin. Remember, Devlin has that damage after contact with Sovnay. When Sovnay was trying to make her way through in the midst of the fight with Stanek and Korb. Stringer has closed down what was a 4-second disadvantage with that. They get overtaken there by Jan Korbs onto the back straight. And will Stringer look to try and make that move? Because he hasn't made any serious moves for the lead at the moment here. And I think that Stringers might just be taking it a little bit easy. But he goes, again, look, he could have made that move. He could have gone later on the brakes there, made that move up the inside, definitely would have had the overlap to fight it, but these are teammates, of course, and they're running first and second. They've almost guaranteed themselves a first and second here, as long as they don't get themselves involved in any instance. Don't panic that you can see Verdonk falling down the order on the left-hand side. He has now come down pit lane in this one and looking to move his way through up the order, as that was Devlin wobbling. It is going to be side by side between the two teammates, but Charlie Devlin keeps himself ahead through the end of the lap there, just for a moment. The two drivers swapped positions, and it was a bit of a moment for Charlie Devlin coming up towards the penultimate turn here. You can see he runs himself out wide. It opens up the door, and then Devlin just sticks it back towards the inside. And for the time being, that stayed that way. But then again, they've actually swapped themselves around again here as they get overtaken by Verdonk out of pit lane. Stringer now ahead of Charlie Devlin. Stringer, though, gets the sausage curb. Charlie Devlin puts his nose in here through the S's. They're going to switch themselves around. It's going to invite Devlin back in towards the lead. He stays behind his teammate Ryan Stringer through the exit of the S's here. But are we going to see them swap around again? We will watch how it swapped around in the first place in just a moment. Devlin goes to the inside of Stringer, gets a lock up, and Stringer spins the car, running over the sausage curb there for the number 44 machine. That was Dibden having a bit of a weave, trying to avoid any further incident. But let's have a look at how they originally found themselves swapping around. This was the original swap around between the two drivers, as Dominic Gallo has now come down pit lane as well. That was where they originally swapped, and Devlin holding on to the lead. It then swapped around again as we came out of the final turn. That little bit of a slide there, as Stanek and Sovnay seem to have just swapped positions, but they are also both down pit lane, as that's how they swapped around with Devlin behind. And then, of course, we had the spin here for Ryan Stringer. It was a lock-up from Devlin. Stringer tried to do the up and under, caught a bit too much of the sausage, threw himself into the air, took himself around there. Right, we go back towards live pictures here, because Tanek, Sovnay have just found their way out of pit lane. And probably to the annoyance of Dibden, he has come back out on circuit, still behind Napsuga. Sovnay looking to try and get potentially an undercut, and this one has fallen further off of Stanek and is still behind Napsuga Sovnay in this race. So Dibden now is going to look to see if he can try and make his way back through, and up into fourth position. Jan Korbs leads the way here. If Korbs is able to keep it for 5 more minutes, that's an indication that he could go for one stop. I think, though, we will see Korbs pitting. Now, of course, Korbs has been taking it very, very easy. Has he been saving fuel in this one? Is that why we've seen him so slow through this race? He's trying to go for a one stop rather than doing a 2-stopped race. Is that potentially what's going on there? As we have another looks like we've got timing issues here between Dibden and Sovnay. Dibden does remain behind, even though that gap is not quite displaying properly. We normally have this problem with Julian Metzner. We don't often have it with anyone else, but Tony Dibden is going to be our driver with timing issues today. So just on that left-hand side there, just be aware that that gap is actually slightly bigger than what it says it is through most of the way around the circuit. Jan Korbs remains out for an additional lap of asking here. And if he could stay out for, what, 3 more laps? It could be a one-stop race. And is that what Jan Korbs has been going for with taking it easy? We're seeing him so slow out there. Is he going to try just to save fuel to get through to the end of this one rather than trying to do it at an outright pace and therefore benefit from a one-stop over the 2-stop that the rest of your field are going to have to do, especially Tony Dibden, who pitted 4 laps ago. The rest of your field pitting about a lap ago. Verdonk did it 2 laps ago, but Verdonk has been pushing. So he has been trying a lot here to get his way around the circuit as fast as he can. He opened up quite a big gap at the front as well. That gap now 5 seconds between himself and Justin Stanek, who's really benefited through this pit stop window. Did he maybe fuel up just a little bit less into this one to open that gap between himself and the drivers behind? Because if he did, as that was going to be Sovnay off the circuit up towards the end of the back straight, but she keeps it ahead in fourth position for the time being, ahead of Tony Dibden. But yeah, I mean, there is potential here for Stanek to have underfueled his car on this stint, which just gained him that little bit of time to give him the breathing room to the cars behind. It does mean, though, that obviously in the next stint he would have to fill up more than the other cars around. That could lose him that little bit of time. But if he's not fighting and he's just able to put in some really strong lap times, there is potential for this to really benefit out here as we come up towards turn number 1. Tony Dibden looks to the inside of Sovnay. Sovnay leaves that door open in the fight, but carries the speed on the outside line. Tony Dibden is unable to keep it on the inside line quick enough to maintain 4th position, and will have to hold on to 5th place right now. And this obviously they're just waiting for Jan Korbs to pit, and this will turn into a fight for a podium spot at the moment. However, it is a fight for 4th position. Dominic Gallo has fallen a lap off of the lead here. He's actually fallen a lap behind every single LMP1 driver, but still lapping crucially and still going to put points on the board for a 6th position in this championship as Dibden closes with that boost. It's going to be defensive straight away from Sovnay. Dibden goes to the outside line though. Sovnay bounces over the sausage curb on the inside. It's going to be the inside line here for Tony Dibden, and Sovnay gets onto the rear end looking to see if she can make her way past, but Tony Dibden in the Audi makes his way past Napsuga Sovnay in the Porsche. She drops behind 7/10 of a second. Jan Korbs continues to lead the way without a pit stop currently in this race as he heads on to yet another lap. And with that being said, Jan Korbs has saved enough fuel here for a one-stopped race. Jan Korbs can come down pit lane and know he can definitely make it to the end of the race without any sort of splash and dash. Of course, the other drivers might have something similar, but they all pitted a lot earlier in this one. That makes me think there's going to be a splash and dash at the end. Jan Korbs, however, is pushing it to the halfway stage as we're 5 seconds away from halfway in this one. Jan Korbs is the only LMP1 driver not to have pitted so far. Lucas Chatterton has just made a pit stop as well in class and has come out obviously still in 3rd position, as it looks like Ryan Stringer seems to be losing time. That is why Ryan Stringer is now down pit lane. I don't know why my my pit stop notifications occasionally working and then not working. I don't know what's going on with those. I'd love it if it was just always working. But anyway, Napsuga Sovne here, running around in 5th position behind Tony Dibden. As she's just lost that one, of course, we'll be hoping to try and find her way back through. Will Jeanne Corbs be down pit lane this time around? Yes. After 26 laps of racing action, with a predicted 52 laps now, Jeanne Corbs has gone to the exact halfway mark of this race and will be coming down pit lane. He'll be falling down the order, but we wondered in the first stint, why was Jeanne Corbs so slow? It was unlike the Jeanne Corbs we have known throughout the course of this season. This could potentially be why. The opportunity to make this 2-stopped race a 1-stopped race by just going slower, by lifting and coasting and saving fuel. It tells you straight away why he was losing so much time over the drivers out there. And as he rejoins onto the circuit here on the inside of Thomas Clausen, Jeanne Corbs is 15 seconds behind the rest of the field, with a purple lap, shall we say. 15 seconds behind the rest of the field, behind Napsuga Sovne, almost 16 seconds between them. However, this strategy call is an absolutely ingenious one if it is turning this 2-stop into a 1-stop. So we'll have to keep our eye out on that, there's no doubt, as Sovne gets her way past Ryan Stringer there along the back straights. That gap between herself and Dibden there, about 2.2 seconds separating them. What a circuit this is here, though, at COTA. It is a track that I genuinely dislike as a driver. It is a circuit that I cannot ever get to grips on. There are so many complex corners to really navigate and to get it working well, and that's because it's a circuit that when it was designed and built, it was designed to mimic other circuits, existing circuits out there. Of course, you've got the S's towards the start, mimicking your Maggots and Beckett's section of your circuit. You've got corners that mimic Suzuka. You've got corners that mimic so many famous locations around the world that you do have a massive workout in these cars to try and figure out how to get them around the circuit. And as a driver, for me, it's not one that I enjoy. However, as a spectator, I do think that the way that it combines some of the best parts of other racing circuits really does create it as a really good racing circuit, especially with some of those long straights as well, into the heavy braking zones, as well as through the S's where you've got to follow that behind and try to see if you can open any sort of door. It really does make it interesting to see those fights that go on, especially, you've got that elevation down at turn number 1 as your race leader of your LMP2 field. Charlie Devlin comes down into pit lane here and will be making his first stop of the day as he comes into a stop behind outside his garage here. This circuit itself, though, brilliant, of course, and yeah, that turn 1, that climb up turn number 1 is such a fun climb, and look how steep it is as we watch here. It is just an absolutely monumental climb, and then it's a hairpin left-hander, and when you get out there and you get onto the circuit, I say it never feels as tight as it truly is. You make this left-hander, it almost feels like a 90-degree left when you're out there on the track. That's certainly my personal opinion of it anyway. You make your left-hander, it feels a 90-degree corner. It is not. It is a hairpin corner. It is a 180-degree corner that flips yourself around, back facing the way you came from, and back down the hill again before you get into these S's, of course, where you've got that high speed direction changes. You're chopping and changing from one side to the other, and fortunately for our drivers right now, not keeping them, as this is the battle out of pit lane. Actually, Charlie Devlin misses out to Ryan Stringer on the exit of pit lane, but Devlin's going to look to try and get back towards the inside line. Won't be able to make that one work. Ryan Stringer finds his way into the lead through the first turn after the pit stop stages. Of course, remember, Stringer was about 4 seconds behind when we came down pit lane before. Bootland now down pit lane. But here we go. Devlin, our pit lane. Stringer has found time on his undercut of Charlie Devlin and makes his way past on the outside there of Charlie Devlin. Devlin, though, has made his way back through into the lead of the race. These two teammates are going at it, but they're not, of course, going as feisty as we occasionally see our drivers. This is what happened between these two on towards the back straight, and it was just a move to the inside for Devlin. This time, Stringer does not get the sausage curb up the inside that causes them both to bounce. Right then, we go back to live pictures. A big old wobble there for Charlie Devlin. Cold tyres, of course, on the number 23 machine. Ryan Stringer has had a couple of laps now to get those tyres up to temperature, which means he is looking a bit more confident as another slide from Charlie Devlin. Ryan Stringer moves to the inside as Devlin slides for a third time there. Now runs deep into the penultimate corner. Ryan Stringer switches across, goes to the inside. We'll have the inside line do the final turn, but he goes deep. It isn't going to be to the inside for Charlie Devlin. The two Scorpio Esports drivers fighting it out for the lead of the LMP2 field, but Charlie Devlin on the cold tyres wiggles and worms his way back to the front of the order. And Ryan Stringer, after making his way into the lead, just put it a little bit too deep into the final turn. You could see the lock-up from the air as you saw the mark that he was leading on the ground. As we come through the opening section of the circuit and now up towards the back straight. That gap has opened up between them once more. 7/10 of a second. Stringer, though, will be looking up at Charlie Devlin. Would have been seeing that opening. He waited for the move when Devlin was sliding because he knew that was going to be his opportunity. Devlin here will have a nice fixed front end to his machine. Whereas before he didn't. So Stringer might have a hard chance here to try and find his way through. Thomas Clausen is down pit lane. Andy Bootland here comes over the timing line and makes his way past Stringer. But Bootland on this lap of asking did have a slow exit from pit lane. Did something happen, or was it just a slow run here? It was just a slow run on the exit of pit lane. Charlie Devlin keeps it ahead of Ryan Stringer, only just here as Stringer did try to get towards the inside through the middle end of the course. Devlin, though, keeping it ahead. And once again, that rear end just looking really unstable on Devlin. And I'm not certain that's cold tyres anymore. You can see the corrections that Devlin's having to make. And here goes Stringer once more to the inside. Doesn't lock it up this time. However, Devlin does look for the switchback. It's a little bit of a slide, and that is going to give Stringer just a bit more speed on the exit. We come up towards turn number 1. Charlie Devlin to the inside of Ryan Stringer, and Devlin will hold on once again to the race lead, and you can see how that is impacting the LMP2 standings as it is right now. No bonus points on the board at the moment that are being shown. However, if bonus points were being paid out, it would be an extra 5 to Charlie Devlin. He would be taking 55 in this one right now, and therefore have a 10 points advantage over Luca Grayton. These are our unofficial race standings, by the way. They are not our official standings in the championship. So we will get, hopefully, official championship standings when we go back out for the 7th round of asking in 3 weeks' time, after doing a triple header, 3 races back to back on our Saturdays. We are going to be taking 2 weeks off here at Aztec Racing and in the Joseph Wright Broadcasting booth on these Saturday evenings before we go out again. Round number 7 in 3 weeks' time. Of course, if you want to catch more racing action and you don't want to wait 3 weeks, to make sure you head across to the Joseph Wright Broadcasting channels, because we are going live throughout the week, every single week, and we have got a massive lineup coming up ahead. Again, a slide from Devlin there. He's looking really, really loose. We're going to ride on board Stringer here because this is the section that Devlin's rear end just seems to step out and be a little bit tail happy. It looks smoother this time around though, as that is going to be Mauricio Marquez Ramos into pit lane there, just ahead of the LMP2 drivers. But yep, at Joseph Wright Broadcasting be live next week for what is going to be a very strong weekend of TCR racing action, of our 6 broadcasts that will be coming your way next weekend. Sorry, your 5 broadcasts, I should say, the 5 broadcasts that will be coming your way next weekend. 4 of them are TCR racing action. So make sure that you are joining us for all of the touring cars that will be going on next week over on the Joseph Wright Broadcasting channels, which you can find on Twitch and YouTube, Joseph Wright TV. Right then, we come out of the SS here and up towards the back straight. Ryan Stringer has dropped off a bit towards Charlie Devlin, and this is what Stringer was trying to avoid. It's why he's been trying to put his car ahead of Devlin throughout the fight after the pit stops. Now, talking of pit stops, your GTEs will be a 1-stop, that's for sure. Your LMP2s will be a 1-stop, that is for sure. There is still debate in the air with your LMP1 machines. I do believe Verdonk, Stanek, Dibden, Sauvigny will all definitely, and actually Dominic Gallo, all of them, I think, I'm going to say, I'm 99% sure they're going to go for another pit stop in this race. Shane Corbs, however, pitted 5 laps after the rest of the drivers, managed to pit after 45 minutes had passed in the race. If Corbs can save as much fuel as he did in the first stint of asking, he will be able to do a 1-stop in this race. And as we saw from during the pit stop cycle, Corbs was leading that train of drivers behind, 8 seconds clear of them at the start of his run around. I believe it was about 6 seconds by the time he pitted, but he should therefore be able to maintain a race victory on a 1-stop. But it's going to be interesting to see. It's a very different strategy. It's the man that's only led during the pit stop cycle so far. Will it happen again at the end? These LMP1 machines, what brilliant machines they are, though, out there in racing. I mean, it's a shame we don't see them anymore. There is no doubt about that. It's a car that has produced great racing in the past, of course, but due to the expensive cost of all of the development and the improvements and just maintaining the race cars, of course, it just became too expensive for manufacturers to compete in, and it's a class that unfortunately died. Audi and Porsche, your 2 last classes to participate in the LMP1 field, of course, before it fell by the wayside. So a real shame indeed when they left, and obviously the class came to an end. Now, Dominic Gallo has pitted. This will take him to the end of the race. Remember, Dibden pitted just after the first half hour of the race. Dominic Gallo is now pitting just before the final half hour of the race. So I do believe that this will be Gallo's final pit stop. What's Dibden's choice going to be in this one? Because he pitted really early in the first stints here. Pitting, like I said, he pitted 3 laps earlier than any other driver. Is he going to be going for another early stop in this one, or for a later stop for Dominic Gallo? He is out of pit lane pretty quickly there. That was a very quick stint. Well, very quick stop, of course. And if it is just that splash and dash to get to the end, that shows you how quick it can be. We might not see Jean Corbs finding his way all the way through. And right now, Dominic Gallo, you can see that traffic issue. When you are stuck behind a GTE driver through the S's, it just becomes really challenging to find your way through. This is Andy Bootland, the leading GTE driver right now, ahead of Dominic Gallo. Gallo can move to the left and make his way past after the S's, but just keeping it safe out there for Gallo. He's a lap down from absolutely anyone else in his class. He's just trying to keep it on the track, get 6th place and get the points that are on offer for 6th place as well. Quinton Verdonk having quite a lovely lead at the beginning of this one. That gap now down to 3 seconds, but Stanek there pushing it off the circuit just a little bit, kicking up a little bit of grass, bouncing his way out of that section. But we see him closing the gap down, and on the last lap of Asking alone, he was 0.3 of a second quicker. And at the moment, as it stands though, it is fastest lap for Jean Corbs, and Corbs is running a fastest lap that is about 0.8 of a second quicker than anyone else out there. And I think Corbs pushed it right towards the end of his first stint to get that lap time in, because remember, he is saving fuel. He's running quite slowly towards the back of this one. I say slowly, he has closed in to 12 seconds now to Napsuga Sovne have a gap that was 15, but I think this is more than anything Sovne falling away, because on the last lap 0.7 slower than Tony Dibden. 3 classes all coming together on the circuit there. There's not many of them out there, but they all come together. Justin Stanek, Ryan Stringer and Thomas Clausen all coming to the same part of the racing track there as we come through the final turn here, as we go across the timing line. 28 minutes left on the board, and if you're watching for the first time and wondering what is happening here with our drivers, well, we have Quinton Verdonk leading the way in your LMP1 field from pole position. He has a gap that is now increased to almost 5 seconds, as Stanek is getting held up a little bit by the LMP2 traffic. But it's just part and parcel of racing, of course, here in the multi-class series. He falls down to 5 seconds now behind Verdonk and has a bit of work to do once more. Tony Dibden is running around with that podium right now, and championship leader Jean Corbs is going for a bit of an alternate strategy in this one. Keep an eye on him. He's the only driver that extended his first stint to over halfway through this race. We do believe that all of our drivers are going to be on 2-stop strategies, apart from Jean Corbs, who could make this a 1-stop strategy to move through to the lead of the race. Dominic Gallo has already made his 2nd stop in the race. In your LMP2 field, all of our drivers have gained 1 position, with Ewan Stitchbury starting on pole. He went out early doors on only the 11th lap of Asking. Your LMP2 drivers on the 32nd lap of Asking. Now it is being led by championship leader Charlie Devlin and his teammate Ryan Stringer behind. They were fighting out throughout the end of the first stint and the beginning of the second stint, with Devlin's damage and then cold tyres, but Devlin now pulling himself back away from Ryan Stringer. Lucas Chatterton maintaining what I would say is quite a good gap in terms of Lucas Chatterton's lap times. He's not had the fastest of seasons, as he's getting to grips still with these HBD machines and just continuing to find more and more pace. And I would say that actually the pace that he's showing today has probably been his best of the season. His fastest lap is 1.2 seconds off of Stringer, 1.3 off of Devlin, but to actually be within 2 seconds after his qualifying lap time was over 2.5 seconds behind, I think that is a great showing from Lucas Chatterton right now. And of course, Stringer has spun, had some issues. Devlin has had damage, but Chatterton is keeping it there right now after an hour of racing. So a good run from him. And I know that he doesn't get too much broadcasting time on the air around here, because he is normally towards the back end of the field running around on his own. But actually, Lucas Chatterton has been doing a great job for SM Corsa in this evening's races. And of course, a 3rd position finish as well will help him out in the championship order, making his way closer towards the top of 4. When I say that, it would be closer towards Luca Gray if Luca Gray wasn't picking up a best result of 2nd that is currently being dropped. due to a string of amazing results from Luca Gray. Not here today, of course, but Chatterton extending that gap behind him. 40 points on the board will be a huge amount of points for Lucas Chatterton across this season as well in that LMP2 field. And for Chatterton, it'll be yet again just a lovely result, and it has been just improving for Chatterton. I mean, it was 7th back at round 1, 6th, round 2, 6th, 4th. It's been just a series of improvements for Lucas Chatterton. So it's a great job for him. A shame for Ewan Stitchbury, obviously, went out earlier on in this session after spinning at turn number 1 from the race lead. It was catching up, starting around his second spun again, but I think he had the pace. If Stitchbury stayed out there, he definitely could have caught back up to Devlin, especially with Devlin's damage. And I think the Stitchbury would be back in the lead right now if he didn't decide to back out of the race, because he had no damage. It just generally spun with no contact. It was just a loss at turn number 1 for a second time. So it was a shame to see him go out when I think that there was potential for him to still take the fight to the front. Of course, we did see the fight between Devlin and Stringer for a while. That has now simmered to a close, and Jan Korbs put in fastest lap on the board rather recently as well, to go even faster, 1:43.077 a couple of laps ago. And it is closing on 26 seconds. I think he is starting to push now, especially after seeing the time in which Gallo was down pit lane as well. Because Gallo being down pit lane would have showed these drivers that splash and dash truly is a splash and dash. It is a very, very quick stop between the drivers. And they've got 23 minutes before we get to the end of this race. We will be seeing Verdonk, Stanek, Dibden, Sovnay down pit lane once more. Cobbs will jump Sovnay. I would say Dibden as well. Do you know what I say? It would be very close between himself and Verdonk. I do think he will come out ahead, though. I think that there will be that positioning as we come up towards the end of the lap here. With Jan Korbs. The closest battle out there right now, surprisingly, is actually for the race lead. Quinton Verdonk and Justin Stanek. Remember, Stanek did close that gap down to about 2.5 seconds. It opened up when there was traffic to about 5 seconds, but once again, Justin Stanek has continued to close down that gap, and I think that the number 5 machine could try and take victory here at COTA. He does have some good pace out there. Quinton Verdonk will be looking to keep his car at the very front of the order as we come up towards the end of the back straight here and up towards the final 20 minutes of asking. And this is going to feel like a sprint race once more, as here on the Joseph Wright Broadcasting channel, 20 minutes is your average for your race lengths. It's the length of most of the races that we do is 20 minutes. And of course, we step in for these 90-minute races. It's a lot longer for Verdonk here. He is going to have Dominic Gallo just up ahead of him on the circuit here. He'll be hoping that Gallo finds his way out the way. He certainly does, and doesn't hinder Verdonk at all. And Justin Stanek will be hoping that he will get the same courtesy from Dominic Gallo here as well as we come through the final turn. Stanek looking to still catch up. Right, on the last lap, Stanek 0.4 of a second quicker than Quinton Verdonk. We will stay with Justin Stanek here as he starts what is the 40th lap of asking here out of the predicted 52. We're looking at another 13 laps with this one included. What is going to happen here for our drivers? Stanek, though, gets his way past Gallo, who moves his way out of the way to, again, try not to hinder Stanek in this one. But that gap between Stanek and Verdonk maintaining at about 3 seconds whenever they get onto the exit of the corners and into the entry of the corners as well. On the straight, though, it does close down a little bit, but you can see the pace that Stanek has out there right now as he is pushing, trying to catch up to this race lead. And potentially, if Jean Corbs gets through, only second position, he's going to need to find that pace if he's going to want to beat Corbs towards the end of this as well. Remember, Corbs, though, looks like he is fuel saving in this one, trying to make this a one-stop. Is he going to be able to push as hard as Stanek and Verdonk towards the end of the race if he is trying to keep well, just try and save that fuel a little bit? We ride through the end of the lap here. Dominic Gallo has had some issues here on this lap, and actually it looks like that was just when he was letting Justin Stanek through. In fact, it looked like he pulled himself over to the side, and that's what happened to Gallo. As we go back, it was that contact. I thought he jumped himself out of the way by choice there, but Dominic Gallo certainly did not jump himself out of the way by choice. For Tony Dibden, then, he has come down pit lane. This is going to prove that Jean Corbs at the moment has got some huge overlap out there on the circuit. Corbs moved through for fourth position past Dibden. Sovnay back onto a podium place. Corbs here is less than a second behind Napsuga Sovnay at the moment. 18 minutes and 50 seconds left on the board. You can see it's only a 14-second stop for Tony Dibden. He was down pit lane for 35 seconds. Corbs is 23 seconds behind Verdonk. It's going to be close between the two of them once Verdonk does make his pit stop. Remember, Dibden originally pitted about 4 laps earlier than the rest of the drivers. So are we going to see the rest of them coming in about maybe 6 minutes or so? Corbstan looking to make his way past Napsuga Sovnay. Through goes the number 2 machine, Jean Corbs, onto a podium position for the time being. Jean Corbs makes his way past Napsuga Sovnay, drops down into 4th position, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens with Jean Corbs and the fuel strategy, because Corbs right now looking like he can make it to the very end of this one. He did a whooping 26 laps in the first stint. If he does 26 laps again in the second stint, he will get to the checkered flag. And with the pit stops, actually, we might see the predicted drop from 52 to 51 laps, which would give Corbs another lap in hand. We'll have to keep an eye on what that prediction says. However, once our leaders come down pit lane, Verdonk and Stanek still maintaining their 3-second or so gap between the two of them. Stanek looking to just slowly chip in towards Quinton. Verdonk maybe hoping that he can do a slightly smaller pit stop. Of course, he pitted earlier than the rest of the field. He's been 19 laps out there. He pitted later, I should say, doing 19 laps. Verdonk did 20, but remember, we still don't know whether he underfueled on that first stint, because he gained a massive amount of time down pit lane. So I don't know if he underfueled during that first stint. And it looks like Gallo has done another. That is, I promise you, that is lap 40. We watched lap 38. That was lap 38. Identical. Absolutely identical issues for Dominic Gallo. Twice over the same sausage curb, losing the rear end, sliding, coming to a stop in the exact same location 2 times on the trot. Quinton Verdonk pits here at COTA for the second time. It will be a splash and dash. Will Jean Corbs be able to make his way into the lead here? Corbs should not have to make another stop. He has been pushing hard in this second stint, though. Is there potential that he does need to stop for a lap or 2 of fuel, or is there not that potential? Verdonk gets moving here, but that is going to be Jean Corbs finding his way into the net race lead. Verdonk is only 2 seconds back, though. If Corbs has got to save fuel to get to the end of this one. Quinten Verdonk could have the opportunity to make his way back through. Corbs here stuck behind Andy Bootland. Will lose a little bit of time, about half a second there, stuck behind Bootland, but now Verdonk is going to be behind Bootland, but does get through a lot quicker there in their fight for second position. That net lead. We wait for Justin Stanek here to come down pit lane. Stanek all over the rear end of Marquez Ramos in the number 36 machine. Has to wait through the corner until the exit to make his way past. But he does get all the way around the outside, and Justin Stanek moves in. Moves past Mauricio Marquez Ramos. We should see the number 5 machine down pit lane this time around. We saw a very quick pit stop in the first round of askings, gaining about 3 seconds, not just to those behind, but those ahead as well. Stanek went 1 lap further in the first stint. It looks like he's going to go 2 laps further in this stint and go for 22 laps in the stint once more as we go on to lap number 44 here for Justin Stanek through turn number 1 for Donk. Losing a little bit of time here to Jan Corbs on this out lap for Verdonk. Remember, he has just come out of pit lane. It's the Splash and Dash, same set of tyres he has been racing on all race long. But for Verdonk right now, he's just not able to catch back up towards Jan Corbs, who has been out of the race fight all race long. He's gone for strategy over actual race battles, which is very endurance, very much for what endurance is all about, isn't it? It's not about the on-track fights, it's about the strategy calls that are made. And for Jan Corbs, it's a strategy call to make this 2-stop race into a 1-stop by just going slower in that first stint of the race, making saving enough fuel to make it a 1-stop potential. Justin Stanek went 1 lap longer in the first stint. Is he going to do the same here in this stint and go for a 22-lap stint like he did in the first one of asking, and therefore coming into the pits 2 laps after Quinten Verdonk? We come up towards the end of the lap here, and with 12 minutes left on the board, 8 laps left. Jan Corbs might not actually make it to the end here on the 1-stop strategy. Stanek comes down pit lane and will make the pit stop. Jan Corbs in second position here will be looking to try and make his way past Justin Stanek, which should be easy because the guy is stopped at his pit box right about now. And for Jan Corbs, will he make his way through? Is Stanek going to find time once again in this pit stop stage? He will come out of pit lane. He was about 3 seconds behind Verdonk before the pit stops. He'll be about 3 seconds behind after the pit stops as well, as he'll come out of pit lane and maintain that 3-second gap behind himself, as Napsuga Sovne has now come in for her second stop as well, moving Tony Dibden back into 4th position. But what could have been a second podium of the season for Tony Dibden, what could have been, a third podium I believe it is actually, what could have been a return onto that podium step for Tony Dibden, looks like he may have lost it with Jan Corbs being at the front. What could have been a return to victory lane for Quinten Verdonk, and what was a 2-second gap after Verdonk's pit stop is now a 4.5 second gap. I think Jan Corbs, though, has realised he might not make it to the end of this race without another stop. I'm trying to look here. I say actually he should be good unless he's pushing too hard. What's not good is Charlie Devlin. He's reached incident limit. And the race leader in your LM pit lane here, Charlie Devlin, comes down pit lane from the lead of the LMP2 field. Ryan Stringer is going to take lead in the LMP2 class past his teammate. That is not what what Charlie Devlin would have wanted here. Oh, that was not what I wanted to show. So it looks like Devlin had an issue afterwards as well. This is where we picked up the black flag. Oh, it was with this slide. Look at this. The slide there, the 2x for the spin from Charlie Devlin. That is what picked up the penalty. Charlie Devlin spinning the car, getting the penalty. It's a double whammy for Charlie Devlin. It moves his teammate Ryan Stringer back into the lead of your LMP2 field. Is there going to be any sort of team orders between the Scorpio Esports drivers? Of course, remember, they have got the championship fight with Luca Gray to think about, but Ryan Stringer, as it stands, is leading this way. The bonus points will be going the way of Charlie Devlin at the moment with the fastest lap, with a 55 flat. Natsuga Sovne is now the second driver to pick up a black flag in this race, and will need to pit. Will hold on to fifth though, with Dominic Gallo being so far behind. Justin Stanek is looking to try and close up towards Quinton Verdonk. The gap less than 2 seconds now. Stanek could find his way past Verdonk and into second. Are we going to see Jean Corbs down pit lane? Because he has been pushing so much harder on this second stint than he did on the first stint of asking, is he going to be able to go the same amount of laps? And that being said, my prediction has increased from 52 laps to 53 laps. And if that is the case, if that is what we're going to see out there, Jean Corbs is going to be a lap short, I believe, on fuel. Now, he is the race leader, so he could back it up a little bit if they're about 10 seconds away. Well, I'd say if they're about 5 seconds away as a maximum from getting the checkered when he comes up towards the time. Can he back out of it and take the checkered flag? I'm sure he'll be trying if that's the opportunity that opens itself up. Opportunities could open themselves up for Stanek here, as that was Ryan Stringer that held up Verdonk through the middle part of the course, and it has now put Justin Stanek onto the rear end of Quinton Verdonk here. Less than 8 minutes on the board as we come up towards the end of the main straight. Jean Corbs ahead of Quinton Verdonk, Justin Stanek in third position, Tony Dibden in fourth place in this LMP1 field. Mauricio Marquez Ramos has had an issue, and we will go and have a quick look at what happened to Marquez Ramos here. Into the final turn, it's a loss of the rear end for Marquez Ramos, and the back of the car wants to find its way to the front. And for Marcos Ramos, he remains in third position, still on the same lap as your race leader in class, actually, Mauricio Ramos. He hasn't been lapped yet, but he is very close to being so. Can he stay on the lead lap in class? Well, he's got 7 more minutes to try and do that. 1 second separates Stanek and Verdonk here as we come up towards turn number 1. We ride on board with Stanek. Verdonk getting the rear end, kicking out a little bit through the first turn as we head up towards the S's here. Stanek using a little bit of extra hybrid power here to close himself in towards Quinton Verdonk through the S's. And is he going to have enough of the hybrid electrical power to boost his way past Verdonk along the back straight? We're about to find out here as we get up towards the braking zone. You see he's closing in, Verdonk, I think, just harvesting a little bit more here to help him out going defensive. Jean Corbs 8 seconds clear at the front here. With how hard he's pushing, I do believe we're going to see Corbs have to do a splash and dash, even for a lap or 2 of fuel. If he does this as a one-stop with how hard he's pushing right now, that is going to be an astronomical drive from Corbs. It was obviously a massive amount of fuel saving in the first stint. Did he pit earlier in the first stint with more fuel in hand, knowing that he could push in the second stint? Maybe Corbs was able to save even more fuel than what he showed us by pitting at the halfway stage. maybe he's got more in the bank. Charlie Devlin has obviously recently had that spin, had the penalty, and is now looking to try and move back into the lead of your LMP2 field past his teammate Ryan Stringer. But once again, you can see how Devlin just isn't as smooth as the rear end just sticks out again. A lot of corrections being needed for Devlin. It's very, very tail happy, his car, especially compared to Stringer up ahead. You can see just looking a lot smoother in his machine. We come up towards turn number 1 here with Ryan Stringer leading ahead of Charlie Devlin. Justin Sinek still maintaining about 0.8 of a second behind Verdonk. We'll keep an eye out on that gap, whether there's potential for an overtake between the two of them as they come out towards the end of the lap. But they have just both had to get past Andy Bootland, which I think is what caused the gap to close up all the way to about half a second initially. Right, Devlin still over the rear end of Stringer here. Dominic Gallo is the next driver to have picked up penalties for instant limits and will have to come down pit lane to serve his drive-through. And that now makes 3 of our drivers that have had to come down pit lane. Charlie Devlin has closed up 0.3 of a second between himself and his teammate Ryan Stringer here for the lead of the LMP2 race. We've got only a few more laps left on the board with less than 4 minutes on the clock. We come up towards the end of the lap here. Sorry, the end of the back straight here, I should say. And Devlin all over the rear end of Stringer. Looks towards the inside a bit too far back, especially over your own teammate. You're not going to want to find your way into the back of your teammate at any point in the race, especially with only a few laps to go. Jean Corbs is down pit lane as Charlie Devlin goes to the inside of Ryan Stringer. Stringer tries to get the speed on the exit. Corbs has had to make a splash and dash at the end. He was pushing super duper hard in the second stint of asking, and I think that was because he knew he was going to come down pit lane. Corbs comes out of pit lane. Can Tony Dibden find his way into third position once more? No, Corbs will maintain third position. The undercut has moved him from 5th position to 3rd position. Sorry, the overcut and going for the long stint 1 has pushed him into a position where he will now be on the podium, where before he was not. This is what has happened to Dominic Gallo through the final turn. A loss of the rear end and slams on the brakes before he gets it started again and moving out of the final turn. That's Lucas Chatterton just behind there. What that does mean is Stanek on the rear end of Verdonk has once again returned to being a race for victory. With Corbs out at front, what could have been a one-stop was looking like it was going to be a fight for second. However, Verdonk now is going to be trying to maintain this fight for victory as we come up to what is going to be, as we go on to the lap 51, it is going to be, well, when they come across the timing line, I will tell you whether it will be the final lap or the penultimate lap of asking. It is going to be the final lap of asking. Quinton Verdonk is going to come round the final turn. This is going to be the last lap. Stanek needs to close a 1.5 second advantage, but if last week was anything to go by with Jean Corbs, it was all about saving the hybrid to the last lap and just using it to power your way and keep your gap ahead. It looks like that is what's going to happen here, but Stanek is looking to try and potentially get his way back, get his way through, starting from the rear end. Remember, Stanek and Corbs started from 5th and 6th position, no time in qualifying. Stringer goes to the inside of Charlie Devlin at the final turn as they go on to the final lap of asking. It is going to be a fight between the teammates here for the lead in your LMP2 field. Devlin goes back to the inside of Stringer. Stringer tries to do the switchback. There's a little bit of a nudge there as Devlin gets it slowed down enough to keep himself ahead for the time being as they come up towards the S's here. Verdonk has maintained that gap ahead of Stanek, who has used as much boost as he possibly can. We continue to watch this fight for the moment. Dibden trying to close up towards Corbs, but it's not going to be enough for him. Stringer drops to half a second behind Charlie Devlin, but for Quinton Verdonk, it will be returning to victory lane here at COTA. Quinton Verdonk comes through the final turn, takes victory in your LMP1 field. Justin Stanek comes home behind, and after trying for a one-stop, Corbs just a couple of laps short will come home with a great result of third position ahead of Tony Dibden. Napsuga Sovne will come home in fourth in class, but this is Charlie Devlin getting past Andy Bootland in your GTE field and needs to make his way past Clausen as well. No, past Marcos Ramos, looking to try and get on the outside. Stringer is going to try and take full advantage of the GTE machines, but unless Devlin loses the rear end of the car here, Charlie Devlin is going to come around the penultimate turn here on the final lap of asking, and Charlie Devlin will take victory yet again. In the LMP2 field, it will be Ryan Stringer for second position. Andy Bootland will take the checkered flag for a third time in a row. All your GT3 drivers coming across together there. It was only half a second in the end between Bootland and Clausen on your last lap of asking. That closed right down at the very end of that race, with the different fights going on. The last lap of asking between Bootland and Clausen got caught up with the LMP2 field, and it invited Clausen for that last opportunity, but he wasn't able to take advantage of it. It is going to be Gallo who's going to come across the line. Chatterton's going to come home third in your LMP2 field as well, and we will have a moment to go through your full race results in just a second's time. But what a result there for Verdonk, once more keeping it ahead of Stanek. Jean Corbs almost made that alternate strategy work, but it wasn't to be. And he will pick up a drop week, I believe that this will be. And he'll take 45 additional points. Again, our points in the standings, unofficial. We did not get the official points out of Mexico. So we were running into this one with unofficial points. We'll be exiting this one with unofficial points as well. And hopefully we will go into the 7th round of asking in 3 weeks' time with those official points for you guys, so you can keep fully up to date with everything. Right then, let's have a look at our full race results at the end of 90 minutes of racing around the COTA circuit. It was a victory for Quinton Verdonk, 2 seconds clear of Justin Stanek, and Jean Corbs a further 10 seconds back. But think about how much time he gained with that very different strategy. Tony Dibden coming home in 4th position, just missing out on the podium. Napsuga Sovne, after starting second, just couldn't carry that pace across into the race. Finished home in 5th. Dominic Gallo 2 laps behind in the end on that one. Charlie Devlin took victory ahead of Ryan Stringer by half a second in the end. Lucas Chatterton taking home P3. Ewan Stitchbury out of the race. No points on the board. 36 laps down. And in your GTE field, Andy Bootland won that one again by half a second. Mauricio Marquez Ramos coming home a lap down in the end of that one in P number 3. And how does each of those affect the championship? Well, unofficially, Jan Corbs now leads the championship with 240 points over Justin Stanek. Julian Metzner down in 3rd position ahead of Tony Dibden. Only a couple of points separate them. Quinton Verdonk in 5th position right now. Then it is Napsuga Sovne, 4 points clear of Dominic Gallo before we get to our drivers that have not competed in quite some time. Charlie Devlin leads the LMP2 championship without Luca Gray here with some commitments elsewhere. Ryan Stringer in 3rd position has well, not closed up towards the front, but pulled away from Lucas Chatterton. Chatterton himself has moved past the rest of the field as well and continuing to pull out in a very dominant fashion. However, really look at that right now. Mathematically, Lucas Chatterton is your last of your drivers still in with the championship fight. Actually, let's have a look at our LMP1 field. Mathematically, who's still in this fight? 110 points on the board. We drop back to what, 130 points? So Natsuga Sovne right on the edge, but technically still in a championship fight right now. Dominic Gallo, your first of your drivers out of a championship fight in your LMP1 field. And finally, your GTE field. Andy Bootland, 245 points on the board. Had Mauricio Ramos, 164 and 113 for Thomas Clausen. Again, 110 points on the board would drop you back to 135, which means Marquez, Mauricio Ramos and Bootland are your only two drivers who could officially win the championship in this one. But I do think that in 3 weeks' time, the next time we head out onto the circuit, Bootland is going to take your GTE championship. Right then, at the end of all of that, I think it is time to have a word with one of our drivers coming out of the first race of the day. Sorry, first race of the day. What am I saying? Coming out of the race here of the day around COTA. And then we will go and have a look at how this race was for the man who finished second in the end in the LMP2 field, but out of it all, it was an absolutely fantastic race and fight there for Ryan Stringer. He just missed out on class victory against his teammate Charlie Devlin, but I have to say, Ryan, you put on an absolute heck of a show here in the broadcasting booth.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Charlie had a lot of damage in the first half. I had some issues. Got sent around a couple of times. Yeah, called back up and then I pitted early, hoping that I could get away from him. And yeah, then didn't end up catching him. So yeah, it was a bit of a long shot for me.
Wow, you had a proper fight throughout that one there. You say it was a long shot. I didn't know from the commentary booth here whether you were taking a bit easy with it being Devlin, your teammate of yours. However, you really did take that fight. And it did open up, you're right, but at the very end it came back together again. You got involved. There was a couple of GTEs that made things interesting. Wasn't quite to be. Strong result in second though, but moving in towards the final two races. We take a few weeks off, of course, but once we go into those final two, are you still going to take your fight towards Charlie, or are you going to start helping him out in the championship? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're both battling for the title. You don't ever see teams working together unless it's you're fighting someone quite contently. And I think with the drop round being taken into account, I'm going to be into P2 in the championship now with Luca not appearing tonight. So yeah, it's I think with the next two rounds to go, if we're going to go P1, P2. It's going to be pretty all said and done for the championship, and I think even with the teams championship, I think we've sort of nearly nailed that perfectly as well.
So we go into the final two rounds of Asking Them. We'll be fighting it out as we're already entering the final few rounds. Out of the final two races, is there a particular circuit that you're thinking that's the one that I am going to be able to take the victory ahead of somebody else?
Not really. I'm kind of on the back foot. I've been on the back foot for a while with the equipment that I've got. So obviously I'm very much lacking with a G29. So I don't have much force feedback. I don't have the equipment to actually feel what the car's doing, and it's such a difficult car that you will end up locking up without even realizing you're locking up, which is the biggest issue that I have going into this race compared to Luca and Charlie. They're on decent bit of equipment that they know what the car's doing at all times. I don't. So yeah, it's going to be interesting going into Fuji and Daytona. I'm not too sure how the car's going to handle Daytona with the bus stop. But yeah, it should be an interesting end to the season.
Right, we look forward to seeing how it's going to go out there again. As you say, the Scorpio Esports team have been doing a great run, yourself and Charlie, through this season. Well done on a peak number 2, even if it wasn't quite that victory here. And we look forward to seeing what you can do in the final 2 rounds.
Thank you very much.
Ryan Stringer there, coming home in second in class, and we'll talk to the driver who came second in class in the LMP1 field as well. And just like we saw in the LMP2 field, it was a fight all the way to the end, but you had to work your way from the back of the LMP1 field. Before we talk about the race itself, is there a particular reason, Justin, you didn't get out there and put a lap in qualifying?
Yeah, we saw 20x and no fast repair, and we thought maybe it's going to be the safer option to start from the back. Maybe we shouldn't have done that.
Well, I mean, you showed some really good pace out there, even with starting from the back. You say, yep, it was no fast pair. It was very difficult to keep for some of the drivers within the track limits throughout that race. We saw it affect the lead in the LMP2 class. However, you did close up to Quinten Verdonk. Jean Corbs almost got the one-stop strategy working, but it wasn't quite to be. Was there at any point that you thought that you weren't even going to be able to get into second in that race, but seeing Corbs still up towards the end of that?
The first stint, I thought Corbs was going to make it to one stop and overtook us all, but then he dropped off, or just the gap got bigger, and then I thought, okay. And I was obviously with him in a voice call, so we talked a bit. So I knew I had the chance to win the race, and then I gone full push mode.
It just wasn't quite to be towards the end of that one. That gap between yourself and Verdonk, of course, it was less than a second coming up towards the last lap, but it looked like he just saved enough of his hybrid power to push on the final lap of asking. I know it must be frustrating to not take the win, but how do you feel about getting second position? It's still a really strong result with such a competitive field of drivers at the front.
Yeah, that's strong. That's a good result in the book. I'm happy with that.
And with that, we've got 2 more rounds left to go. Do you think you can find your way just that one step further in either of the upcoming races? Is there a circuit in the final 2 that you think that's going to be my best opportunity?
I think it all depends on Jan, how he's doing, because he's clearly better than I am. And if he makes a mistake, I can maybe get a win. But if he drives a clean race, I cannot beat him.
Right, look forward to seeing what you can do in future races. It wasn't quite to be with the choice to start in pit lane. Well, sorry, the back of the grid on that one. Work your way through. It was second place in the end, though. Still a very strong result. A lot of points on the board. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Justin Steck there, coming home second in the LMP1 field. And that, my friends, is going to be the end of our broadcast here at the wonderful COTA circuit, as we will finish our 90 minutes of racing action around the Texas circuits. It's been great racing as always. We'll return once again for round number 7 in 3 weeks' time. We have 2 weeks off between now and the next time we race. So get your popcorn ready for 3 weeks' time, because Fuji Speedway is going to be a very tight circuit to make our way around. And of course, it all ends on the 16th of May, Daytona Speedway. Until then, though, here at Aztec Racing, we hope you have a fantastic few weeks before we see you again. Joseph Wright Broadcasting, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.